Yo, 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 yo. Welcome back. Another episode of Channel 914. I'm your host, as always, Real Allen. And today, I have a guest with me. It's been a while since I've had somebody on. A few episodes. It's probably been about 4 or 5 episodes. I've been doing a solo thing. You know what I'm saying? Getting my things off of my chest. But today, man, I have a very esteemed guest. Brother from Chicago, South Side, low end, right?
Yes, sir.
You're from the low. Yeah, you gotta be from Chicago to understand what the low end is.
Right.
But yeah, my man Rich Gray, founder of Gray Area Sports Group.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. Sports agent extraordinaire.
I take it.
So, I gotta ask. Well, I got it because I already know, but I just, the one of the most important questions that you can ask a black Chicagoan is, what high school did you go to?
Yeah, man. DuSable High School, man.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Man.
DuSable on the low end.
Red and black pumping through my veins. Like, nah, I wear that flag proudly, bro.
Yeah.
Proudly. Yep.
Yeah, DuSable isn't even still. Is it still a thing? I know they had a charter school in there. They were splitting the school.
Yeah, so it's called DuSable Campus now. Right? Like that's keeping like the tradition of the name alive, but then it's like 2 separate schools with 2 different processes. So I got to get back more engaged with what's going on there, but the name is still alive, but they just got a different type of process going
Okay,
there, man. Yep.
There's a lot of weird stuff like that going on in Chicago high schools, man. It's like 2 different schools operating in the same building.
No doubt.
A lot of charter schools, supposed to be better education, but that's a little bit of a myth.
They all trying to figure it out, man.
Yeah, yeah, but it's still there, it's still standing, man. That's what matters.
Yep.
So I want to get right into it, man. So you are a sports agent,
Yes,
correct?
man. I'm an agent, business manager, but man, it spans, way broader than that. But yes, like that's if I'm having industry conversations, you categorize yourself as an agent, man. But I do a lot of different things within the space.
Okay.
Yep.
But you used to hoop.
Yeah, man, I hooped a little bit, man. I played at DuSable, man. We had some really, really competitive teams, man. I got a chance to, get a scholarship and play at Chicago State, where I really learned, like, the business of basketball. Like, that was, like, my first lesson being there, knowing, when there's a coach that brings you in and that coach loses his job and somebody else comes on board, then that new coach got his own process, and I took it personal, but that's because I didn't understand the business, So, yeah, Chicago State from DuSable. Yep.
I had a very similar experience to that when I was in college, being in there, and the coach gets fired. Coach comes in, they got their own players, they got their own style, and you may or may not fit, and it ain't nothing personal, but I took that shit personal too.
It's the game, man.
Yeah.
It's the game. You find out later on it's the game, but when you 18, 19 years old, you can't wrap your mind around that.
Right,
so, yeah, but it's tough though. But it's real.
Yeah, you definitely don't get it. You don't understand the magnitude.
Yeah.
So you say you described your path to becoming a sports agent and working in this industry as like a bit of an accident, right?
Yeah.
So you pretty much figured out that basketball wasn't going to be your profession.
Absolutely. Man.
Right.
Yeah.
So I remember seeing a thread on the internet, right, where it was like people described like encounters where they played against somebody that was in the NBA, and the moment they realized like, nah, this ain't this like he's going and I'm not.
Yeah.
So did you have any experiences like that? So like what led you to that decision?
It wasn't even really those type of experiences, because I was delusional, right? Like I feel like everybody that plays at the highest level, you have to have like a level of delusion and confidence that, helps you kind of put yourself in a position to be successful like that. But mine was more so, it was my senior year, and I've always been cerebral and analytical, and I'm like, okay, to go overseas at a reputable level, like guys are all conference, all American preseason, like it's a certain level that you have to be at to put yourself in a position to play professionally where you're going to make money that you're going to be comfortable with. And so I've always been a big reader and researcher of anything that I was involved in. And it was going into like Christmas break of my senior year. At this point I had transferred to an NAIA school, and we had, 2 All-Americans on our team, 2 guys that were really, really good at the Division I level. And, you know, we had a team that was getting ready to compete for a national title. And it was like, am I going to continue to be the disgruntled guy that felt like I should be getting more minutes than I'm getting, or am I going to make a shift and be something that's going to be good for the team? And so when I made that decision, that's when I started thinking about, okay, so that means this basketball thing may be over, like on the court. So what are you going to do next? So it was more so that versus seeing somebody that was, you know, better than me and it was a level. It was more so I didn't put myself in a position or was in the right situation where I was the guy that was getting the type of exposure and just opportunities to be considered that. Because, I mean, I had some game. I was kind of nice, but, you know, it just, man, I just looked at the trajectory, man, and I was like, all right, this ain't it. Let's figure something out.
Yeah. So you was able to see the big picture early on. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's important, man, because there's a lot of people out here still delusional right now.
Yeah, and I'm not knocking being delusional because some of the delusional guys are the ones that make it, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
They were delusional a day longer than somebody else, which gave them the opportunity to, you know, to reach their dreams. Like you see guys in the league, like right now, that you ask questions like, how did they even end up in the league? I mean, they had the ability, but sometimes the timing and opportunity wasn't right. And so they stuck around long enough to put themselves in a position to get exposure. And you got guys like that playing in the NBA. Like it happens more now than then, but that delusion is a part of it.
Yeah, especially now when you have, like, you know, like they've built out the developmental league so much, you know, and, you know, like with overseas basketball being at the higher level, because before, you know, like obviously the effect of the Dream Team is well documented,
no doubt,
on overseas basketball. But now, like that level, well, I used to hear about back in the 90s, like when dudes was going overseas, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't really the thing that it is now. But like, I mean, people go overseas and do very well for themselves and have long careers.
Yep.
You know.
And then a whole pathway of going overseas and then coming back and playing in the NBA. You see guys like Patrick Beverly, who did it, and he's on, 15 years in the league?
Yeah.
What if he would have said, okay, going overseas means my NBA dream is over? He was like, nah, I'm going to go to Russia where the conditions are trash and I don't want to be here, but I'm going to use it as a chip on my shoulder. And he elevated himself. Will Bynum had to go to Israel before he got a chance to actually, you know, get a long-term deal in the NBA. So you had a couple of select opportunities that were like that, but now it's more common than it's ever been.
Yeah, now people like Will Bynum, that's somebody that don't.
Yeah.
Because, you know, and he had a long career that people kind of forget about how long, and that boy had springs, boy.
Will might have did 6 years in the league. I mean, you know.
Yeah, because I know he was in Detroit for a few years.
Yep, he was in Detroit, but he got some, you know, years of service. I think he got one with Golden State. It was a couple of times. Like Will got a couple of deals and got some opportunities. Just, you know.
So after you realized your hoop dreams was done, right? So I understand you took an internship with the Chicago Sky.
Yep.
Correct?
Yeah. Well, it was, yes. That's where the whole pathway to the Chicago Sky started, right? Like, you know, I went home Christmas break. I'm like, yo, I'm about to go back and be the best teammate that I can be for my guys. That was the only time I really enjoyed college, just being in school and just being a student, because – and when you on a hoop squad and you ain't getting minutes, you can be in the middle of like the best social experience ever in college. And in the back of your head, you be like, man, I ain't getting no playing time. Like it's a damper on everything. Yeah. So I made a commitment to like, man, I'm gonna come back, be a teammate for my guys, and then I'm about to try to figure this thing out. And so, you know, I just start Googling, okay, I like sports. I know enough about, you know, business just through classes that I had a chance to take. And so I just, at that time, it was Yahoo. It wasn't Google. Yahoo, like, man.
Pre-Google.
I'm aging us right now.
Pre-Google. I mean, people don't even realize there was no Google at one point in time.
So I'm like jobs and sports, Chicago. And then, you know, the Wrigley Company popped up and, you know, the Cubs had an internship. You know, I knocked out my resume. You know, I sent over my transcripts. I mean, I still have that cover letter. Typos in it, all type of stuff, but they called me for the opportunity to interview for the job. And so, you know, I flew home to Chicago. The season was towards the end, but one weekend I asked Coach, like, yo, I know we got practice Saturday, but I got to get on this. And so I flew back home. I took the interview with the Cubs, and, you know, I wasn't polished interviewing because I've never had an experience like that, but I can tell the people within the Cubs organization enjoyed talking to me. We were just having a conversation, and, you know, I didn't get the job, but, you know, Jay Blanc, I don't know if he's still running like broadcasting for them. He was like, man, we're not going to hire you, but once you figure it out, man, you're going to be all right. Don't worry about it. And, you know, I had Rashawn, I don't even want to blow his last name, being disrespectful, but he used to come to the Boys and Girls Club that all of us went to, right, by 5135, the Boys and Girls Club, and he would take us to these weekend breakout sessions. He, would just try to help us get exposure, and he was a account executive for the Chicago Sky, and so, one of our classmates from high school was like, Monique, I told her this, like, she said, you should call Rashawn, like, he's working with that new WNBA team. I mean, maybe he'll look out for you. I text him, like, that same day, he hit me back, like, I don't know what it's going to look like, but, man, we got interns coming in and out of here every day, man, so I got you. I'm going to look out for you. And then that's where the opportunity from the Chicago Sky came from.
Nice. Yeah. Shout out to Mo.
Yeah, it's not major live.
Life
changing to be.
Yeah. But you got to catch the oop though.
Got to catch the oop.
People can throw it up there, but you got to catch it. You got to put it down, and you obviously did.
No doubt.
So while you were there, you had an encounter with a man by the name of Hank Thomas.
Yes, sir.
Who is a legendary Chicago sports agent.
Yep.
Represented a couple of Chicago sports legends, like Dwayne Wade, Tim Hardaway, also people like Chris Bosh.
Yeah.
So you said that you saw him walking with Wade and Bosh one day.
Yeah, like my first day, and I tell people all the time, when you hear this story, it's gonna sound like Forrest Gump. Like, just my entire pathway throughout sports, man, it's really unbelievable about timing and opportunity. But he had just signed Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, right? And I made a joke today to one of my friends, like, man, Andre Iguodala just retired. Like, he's class of 2002. Like, our class is officially out of the league, but Bosh and Wade, like, they were a part of, Bosh was our class, but he was a part of that draft class. I see this black dude, man, he had the suit on, he had the Jordans on, super sharp, I'm like, man, what does he do? And so the Chicago Sky were on one side, and then CSMG was on the other side. Like, they were a boutique agency. They had baseball, football, and basketball. And Hank had the fly office, man. He had the jerseys overlooking Lake Michigan. I mean, I'm like, man, whatever he's doing, like, that's what I want to do. And I didn't understand the world of, like, talking to assistants and scheduling meetings. I'm supposed to be doing something for the Sky, but I just, wandered over there, and I just walked in his office, like, man, introduced myself and just asked him, man, like, what do you do? He was like, what, young man, I'm going to look out for you. I'm going to give you the download on what I do and what's going on. But it's a process to this. Like, you don't just barge in people's office, but a level of audacity, a little bit of delusion, and, just not knowing no better worked out for me. And he took me to lunch, man. And he sat me down and gave me, like, the game from A to Z. Like, if this is what you want to do, this is how you do it. This is the process you need to take. And I said that day, okay, well, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, A to Z.
So, like, and he's no longer with us.
Yeah, man. God bless his soul, man. But
I read a little bit about him because I had heard of him before. But I definitely, it's caused me to do a little bit more digging. Yeah. And he had a sterling reputation.
Yeah. No.
They just said basically he was known as like a decent man in the industry where you don't come across a lot of decent. Just people with morals and values to stand on them.
No church in the wild, bro.
Man.
I'm just telling you, man.
Yeah. But he looked out for people. I read the Chris Bosh, man. He wrote this like piece about him, just kind of like looking at him as a father figure, like all the major decisions basically he made from the point where he met him at age 19 until he passed was like he always talked to him.
Absolutely.
So did you maintain a relationship with him like throughout the years? Did y'all still stay connected or?
Man, it was one of those things where like emailing and texting, it just, I mean, again, we dating ourselves. It was a different point in time. I didn't. Like throughout the summer, I would check in with him and I would let him know, the progress and what I was thinking. But, he had just signed those guys. They had just started their draft process. So understanding what it is now, I understand why he was just like checked out, but he gave me everything I needed that day. Like speaking on what Chris Bosh said about him, one of the things that stood out to me when we sat down at lunch, he was like, man, this is a business where at that point in time, there wasn't an exam to become an agent.
Right.
So, it was, clean reputation, at least, a bachelor's degree. And, you got to have relationships to get clients. But he said as a black man going into this business dominated by white men and being credible, he said, go to law school. I don't care if you don't know nothing about law school, but go to law school. And then if you decide that you're going to continue to do this, then make sure you focus on purpose-driven representation, right? Like, it's not all about getting to the bottom line, because he said if you move with purpose, the bottom line process is going to be what it's going to be, because that's what's going to help you retain guys. That's what's going to help you select the right guys. And that's what's going to make who's out there for you from a representation standpoint are going to be the ones for you. And so I took those two things and I held that close to vest, and that's something that I still live by today in, the way I handle business.
Yeah, he dropped some jewels on you.
No doubt. No,
yeah.
He gave me the game. It's a thing where you learn from your mistakes, but then there's some people that just do exactly what's told to them from the people that did it. And that's been my my MO.
Yeah, man. And moving with integrity is a huge thing that, not a lot of people value that.
No doubt.
And especially when it comes to that bottom line.
Yeah.
Because we live in a world where people increasingly will do almost anything.
Absolutely,
man. for that bread, man.
Get to it, man.
Yeah. So when you talk about, especially, in a world like that where there is a lot of money that can be thrown around at any given time.
Absolutely.
To keep your integrity is something that's definitely paramount, man. But it's good to you met somebody early on that instilled that in you.
Yeah.
Because you could have met somebody that told you, do whatever you got to do.
Whatever you got to do to get to it. And then again, I was doing but again, I also looked at the person who was telling it to me as well.
Right.
Like he had this zeal and this thing that he carried about himself that he didn't even have to say it. You just knew.
Right.
And it was just like, okay, it's the guy to, he was put there for that reason for me.
Right. Yeah. And, hey, man, and you took advantage of it. Like, like you said, preparation and opportunity.
Yep.
Yeah. When those two things meet, man.
Yeah, man. That's what the magic is.
So before you actually worked in the field, so you said you went to law school,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And after that, you decided you wanted to work for an NBA team before actually jumping head first into the agency?
Yeah, I mean, but, I guess I have to tell it the way that is going to be most beneficial to somebody listening. I didn't go to law school until 3 years after working in corporate America.
Okay.
Right? I mean, I wanted to make money, like in a black community, and this ain't no knock on the black community, man. You don't want to be the dude that graduates from college, comes home, and you still staying at the crib. Like,
facts.
You ain't trying to hear that from the ladies. You ain't trying to hear that from your peers.
Oh yeah, you definitely can't be bringing them back home to your mama's house.
You know what your mom's like.
Nah.
Man, I actually started off, man, working in admissions, man. It was for-profit admissions. It was CTU, Colorado Technical University.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
CTU was downtown Chicago. Like, it wasn't sports, but I was like, all right, I could work downtown. They gonna pay me like $35,000. That's enough to give me a little crib. Like, me and my brother, and so, man, they offered me a job after I actually graduated. Like, I still had to do another half semester. When I went back, I finished the summer with the Chicago Sky, which is an amazing experience that I had. I took what I took from Hank and those guys. It wasn't just Hank; it was a bunch of guys over there. But I worked with the Kansas City Chiefs as an intern during my last semester of undergrad. And,
okay.
You see the Chiefs as they are right now. They popping. I was in like some of the dog days.
Yeah.
Of the Chiefs. And,
so what year was that?
Man, that was when Dwayne Bowe was a rookie. Man, they had
Dwayne Bowe,
the boy who was with Rock Nation. He was one of they. He used to score the Larry Johnson.
Oh,
Larry Johnson was there. Yeah.
Yo, quick sidebar. I don't know. Do you see him on social media now?
Yeah, man, it's tough. Like, he got his conspiracy.
Yo, my God, bro. Like, yeah, man, them hits to the head, man. Yeah, bro. I'm sorry, but
No.
but that was just it. He kind of like fell off a little bit. But those years, like, but I think Larry Johnson, he rushed for over 2,000 yards one of those years.
He was that dude. No,
yeah.
Larry Johnson was that dude. And in the Chiefs, they had like some pieces.
Right.
But like Herm Edwards was the head coach. And they had, man, young dude, man, Jamil Northcutt. He was like assistant director of player personnel.
Okay.
Jamil was a young black dude. He had graduated from Ole Miss. He had been working in the NFL, and his biggest thing was, mentoring young black professionals that were trying to enter the sports realm. And so he, him and Herm had pulled me and took me to lunch, and, I established a connection there. And, it wasn't just am I going to work in football or not? It's just how you need to move and carry yourself, and then the responsibility that you have for the guys coming back from you, behind you. So that's what I feel like I picked up from working with the Chiefs. And I mean, Jamil is still like a really close colleague of mine to this day, man. But
nice.
The Chiefs experience was really, really dope. Like, it was really dope.
It'd be different being there now.
Yeah. Oh my God, man, please.
Yeah, once they got that boy Pat Mahomes, man, it was a whole nother world.
But CTU, I was getting ready to graduate, and I'm like, man, I graduated in December, and I'm like, if I'm gonna go back to Chicago, I need to be walking into a job, and so I interviewed right after graduation, and man, I had a job in January, so it was popping. Man, I took 2 years, I did that, but then that's when I found out about like, all right, fulfillment. You know what I mean? Like I could have stayed there and worked for 20 years. It became a VP. Like what's my man name who was running it over there? But man, I was just so many empty days going in there working, and then one day, man, this is when I ran back into Hank again. It was I forgot the name, Bull and Bear.
Okay.
Yep, River North, and we had went there for lunch one day, and their office was walking distance from Bull and Bear. Like Hank had moved over to CAA at that point in time.
Right.
He was like, Rich, what's up, man? What you doing, man? I'm doing well, man. Did you go to law school? You started? Like, I'm like, nah, not yet. I'm studying for the LSAT. He was like, well, I don't want to hear no fenners. Like, get to it. You told me what you wanted to do. Get to it. And so, man, I kind of hit a pause on everything that was going on. And I'm like, jobs and sports once again. And the Atlanta Dream, the WNBA team in Atlanta, they had an opportunity on the marketing side. The things that I had done between the Sky and the Chiefs and the entry-level position that was available, I fit. And, they ended up like, I got my resume in. I did 2 phone interviews. And it was like, man, if you want the job, man, can you be here next week? So put my resignation in at CTU, threw my stuff in the trunk, man, and I hit the road and moved to Atlanta. Like that's literally how it happened.
To the A.
To the A.
What year was this?
That was 2009.
Okay.
It was 2009 when that happened. So
how long were you down there?
Man, I made it one season. Atlanta was different, but the team made it clear, like, the jobs, because the WNBA was still a struggling league at the time, it was going to have to be seasonal. I mean, they promised me on the opportunity of potentially being full-time year-round, but they said the only thing that we can commit to was seasonal. And again, let's be delusional. Well, I'm going to go and I'm going to kill it, and they're going to keep me for the rest of the year. And it didn't work like that. We had a great season, all of that stuff, but, the business said, we'll, bring you back when the season starts, but you got to figure out something that you're going to do, in the meantime. And so that's when I was like, all right, law school it is. Like, put my head down, studies for this LSAT, and get it back going. And then that's how I started pointing back in that direction.
Okay. So then you ended up spending some time with the Brooklyn Nets. Yeah,
man. After law school, I spent the summer here working at the Court of Appeals, man, and we were down on I was seeing young black dudes get thrown in jail for an entire summer, with a judge, mentor of mine. And I was like, man, you know what? That was like depressing, man. That just made me like adverse to anything law, like all of that stuff. So I'm like, man, I ain't taking nobody's bar. Man, there's some opportunities out here with so in the sports field, man. I applied for a job at the Brooklyn Nets, and I had spent some time at Priority Sports while I was in law school. Mark Bartlestein and his group, I did 2 summers. I did a summer here in Chicago, and I did a summer out in L.A. And they had a guy that joined Priority that left Brooklyn. He left the Brooklyn Nets, and so they referred me to the opportunity in Brooklyn, and was one of those, all right, can you be here next week? So, all right, this is what we doing. Stuff in the trunk, move to Brooklyn.
Yeah.
That's literally how it happened.
That's crazy. So how long were you there? Like, what was that experience like?
Amazing, man. It was 2 seasons. Billy King was the general manager there. The team was, they had, made some trades. They traded for KG. They traded for Paul Pierce.
Oh yeah, that was that. So you were there during that time when they mortgaged the future.
So we got to win now. And then the GM, he had a gun at his face pretty much. Like, it's like, you either gonna win or we firing you. And that's when I got a chance to see like the inner workings of an NBA organization. How the front office process is tied into marketing, it's tied into, what the opportunities are going to be the following years and all of that stuff, man. And everybody just took a liking to me in Brooklyn. That's what KG and I first connected. I was one of the only African Americans that was outside of the team president, that was at the organization. And so, KG, anytime he had questions about anything, it could be stuff on the court, front office stuff, and he would overlook the entire organization. Be like, Rich, Chi-Town, man, what's this? Help me out. I'm trying to understand this, Lord. Just like treating me like I was the general manager, president. And just that experience was amazing. But I did 2 years there. Billy ended up losing his job, and then that's when the Sean Marks era came in. It's not that they let me go, but during my time with the Nets, man, I connected with so many guys from other teams, like front office people, and Chris Bernard, he was the VP of player marketing for the New York Knicks, and I had connected with him, and he just like, man, if things aren't working out here, man, just give me a call. We may have some stuff happening over here in New York and with the Knicks, and I reached out to him while the whole transition was going on with Brooklyn, and he ended up connecting me with Dan Padover, who was pretty much the manager of basketball ops for the New York Liberty, the WNBA team.
Right.
And they hired me after the Brooklyn Nets season was over, and I went over there.
So while you were working with the Liberty, you ended up connecting with another Chicago basketball legend by the name of Isiah Thomas. Some people know him as Zeke.
Yeah, day one, Isiah got named president of the team. Like my first day, he wasn't even on board yet. After I got hired is when they hired Isiah, and I bumped into Zeke in the hallway. Same day. Like it's again, Forrest Gump stuff, man. And Zeke had an interesting tenure when he was running the Knicks. And so when he came back to MSG, like, his head was on a swivel. He wanted to make sure that every room, he knew who was in there, what was going on. And, I wasn't a familiar face. And he pulled me to the side like, what's your name, boss? And I told him where I was from. And he was just listening. He was just downloading. He wasn't, asking a lot of follow-up questions. He just kind of allowed me to give like my elevator pitch. And two things that he connected to: law school, from Chicago, like those two things. And of course, I'm African-American male. And it's like, man, I need somebody to watch my back while I'm here. I need somebody to make sure my front, my back, everything is covered. And, the next day he asked me, like, who are you connected? Like, where did you play college basketball? And I told him that I played at Chicago State for Bo Ellis. He was like, Bo? Like, Bo was one of my mentors. Like, he's somebody that, helped guide me through the city of Chicago. And so I'm going to reach out to Bo about you. We'll see what it is. And he definitely called Coach. And this is a lesson for all young men that regardless if you're the man on the team or you somebody that's the last man, is how you carry yourself and, being upstanding and just being a solid dude, man. Yeah. And who knew the dude that didn't give me no playing time at Chicago State would give me the referral that would change my life. That's 10 years later.
Hey, man.
10, 15 years later. And so Bo, he checked it off, and Zeke came the next day like, man, I want you to be my chief of staff. I know you was getting ready to go on work for the Knicks, but you do a few years with me, and you can write your own ticket in this game.
That and it's crazy how you put that in terms of you never know who, like in terms of relationships and like how you treat people and how you carry yourself. Yeah. You never know who's watching. You never know who is going to hold the key.
Absolutely,
to a door that you need open.
Absolutely.
And so like they're not burning no bridges, being respectful and all that other stuff, man. And like just managing relationships is a very, very important thing, which obviously is paid off for you.
Man. Yeah.
So and about Zeke, man, like, so obviously you spent a lot of time with him.
Absolutely.
You still have a relationship with him.
Very, very close relationship.
Yeah. And and I feel like, just a quick sidebar, man, Zeke is a fucking legend in the NBA. Probably the best little man point guard.
Yeah.
Arguably, because I mean, you want to talk about like, and I feel like him being from Chicago, it's like people forget because he's known for playing for the Pistons, right?
Which is a Chicago rival.
Right? And not only is it a rival, it was the bad boy Pistons who like basically beat Mike unmercifully for a few years. And then obviously you have the incident where they walked off the court, And I feel like there have been a few things where like maybe Zeke probably maybe put his foot in his mouth, said some things he maybe shouldn't have said or whatever. But it's really strange to me when you talk about basketball royalty, because there's so many players that come from Chicago. Chicago is a hooper city. We got a lot of people in the NBA still to this day, a lot of legends from the NBA. Even though KG, technically he not from here. He from here.
Yeah, take it from here, but he's been more like dual. He's been South Carolina and Chicago. He's been a lot more lately.
Right, so, exactly. You know what I'm saying? But like Zeke is one of the originals, man.
Yeah.
And he's not really brought up in those conversations where you talk about hoop legends in Chicago. And I just feel like it's kind of, I think it's about time, man. Like somebody needs to run a campaign or something for like Zeke to get his flowers for real. At least in Chicago, because it seems kind of ridiculous at this point. And I know a lot of it has to do with his relationship with Mike.
Yep.
We all know that he wasn't on the dream team
because
of Mike, which is a fucking travesty. He should have been. He should have been there.
No, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean,
John Stockton's spot was Isiah Thomas.
Come on, man.
And Stockton was. I mean,
Stockton was
Zeke,
a beast.
It's gonna be Stockton. Right?
Yeah.
Because Zeke was healthy and available, should have been his spot.
Should have been. But, and hopefully one day that does happen, and it's crazy because of that relationship. And Mike, I mean, he's obviously not from Chicago.
Yeah.
Even though Chicago Michael Jordan owns the city.
Yeah.
Always will. He brought 6 championships here. The Bulls really ain't been shit since, outside of those few years with Derrick Rose.
Yeah.
But it's really just sad, man. And Zeke, I feel like is very misunderstood.
Yeah.
He's a real good guy, hoop legend. But so we talk a little bit more about how he's helped you throughout the years outside of that time with the Liberty.
Absolutely, man. So the first thing, man, like Zeke is creme de la creme. Like when it comes to pure basketball, at that position, the way he did it, arguably, pound for pound, you could say he's the best, right? However, the part that he doesn't get enough credit for is we talk about all of these like athletes that, have built something on the court and then expanded outside of the court and created all of these different silos. Zeke was the first one. He was the first one to do it in the way that he did it. Like you hear about the Magic Johnson stories a bunch, you hear about all of that stuff. But man, when it comes to education, business, and, community work, man, Isiah is like, he's the standard. And I feel like that's how he helped me more than anything. Not necessarily sitting me down and saying, Rich, you got to do this, that way, and then it's going to lead to this. It was like, nah, like he put me in the middle of everything that he had going on. So with Mary's Court, his nonprofit organization that ran the Chicago Peace Games through here, every meeting, Father Flager, all of these people, he dropped me in the middle of it. If I can't be there, Rich, you got to be my extension of it. And we're gonna do this together with his family and other people, of course. But he exposed me to everything that needed, exposure to. Business wise, he started his champagne company. You got the real estate company. The first bottle of champagne, before it even had a name on it, the label came to my desk and it sat on my desk. And before we did anything, he sat down and he had a conversation with me about the champagne company that he was trying to build, his strategy and all of these different things that he was doing. And it wasn't I'm going to do it next year. It's I'm going to do it tomorrow. It was a label on it the next week. He was hiring people. He was building. And like everything is like turnkey. Let's do it tomorrow. And then, just education. He got of course he graduated from IU. But then, you go to Cal Berkeley, which is one of the most prestigious, universities in the world. Let's not even just say the United States. And he went and got his master's degree in education, while he was, still building out, his post-plan career, and just a super intelligent dude. Like, you couldn't have a conversation with him without making sure you read the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, all of this stuff, because if you're lacking on information, he gonna, man, what the fuck you do today? You ain't read nothing all day. Like, go read, and then we'll have a conversation. So he just helped me, get buttoned up. I call it the Harvard Business School of the sports industry, like that time that I spent with him. And, that alone was just, it was gold. Yeah,
that's stuff like that you don't really hear about Zeke.
Nah, you don't.
A lot of people, especially in the past years, man, you really only hear about the drama surrounding Zeke.
Yeah.
Like the stuff with Magic Johnson, the stuff with Mike, the stuff with Larry back in the day,
clickbait stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the stuff that you hear, but again, it depends on who you having a conversation with about them, and that's the direction that the conversation is gonna go.
Yeah, and it makes sense that he would be as cerebral as you described, because he was a point guard.
Yeah, nah.
He got to see everything. He got to know what everybody's doing. You got to know where everybody needs to go.
The mastermind of the bad boys. Like, you saw how they played the game. They talk about their aggression, but they never talk about their intelligence.
Oh, right? Yeah, absolutely.
One of the most intelligent teams this game has ever seen, and he was the brains of the operation.
He ran the show.
Mad scientist, no doubt.
So. Yeah, and that's the thing, because like I definitely got my appreciation for him later on.
Yeah,
because I mean, in the 90s, everybody hated Detroit.
Yeah, my God.
Yeah, if you were a Bulls fan, you hated Detroit, and Zeke was the head of the snake, so you hated Zeke.
Head of the snake.
You know what I'm saying? So but obviously later on, and really just like having a more of appreciation for the game. Like, I'm definitely more of a football head than I am basketball. Yeah. But, you know, I mean, Chicago, you have to have an appreciation for basketball. Because it's a hoop city. You know what I'm saying?
About it. No matter what sport you play, when that ball rolls out there, it ignites something.
Yeah. And, I was trash. Terrible at basketball. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't good for nothing but rebounds and hard fouls. Right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But in terms of like the history and just realizing like everything he did and it continues to do for the city, like without getting any sort of recognition for it.
Absolutely.
Man, Zeke is a gem, man, and I really, really want to put more pro Zeke rhetoric out there in the ethos, man. You know what I'm saying? So he can try to get his due one day, bro.
Yeah, nah, man, and sometimes it was surreal. Like I'll be having conversations with him about, you know, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. I would have to like in the moment, like, yo, talking Isiah Thomas right now, like being a fanboy without being a fanboy, but it's just like it to this day it still doesn't make sense. It don't even add up, bro.
Yeah, that you got you got Zeke's phone number in your phone.
Yeah, text him this quick response because he's on his phone. He's a technology dude. But when you text him or ask him something, you better be ready to have a conversation because it's never gonna be short. And I appreciate that, man. And I don't take that relationship for granted.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. And so you were able to build a lot of relationships outside of the relationship that you had with Zeke.
Absolutely,
right?
Man.
And during that time, you were, was it Jaylen Brown?
Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
That was like I had, you know, agent experience, agent business experience, but a different type of process started with the Jaylen Brown, process, right? Like he, you know, him and Isiah connected because it was a Cal Berkeley thing. Like he was, you know, always on campus, always visible, and when guys needed him, he was there for them. And in the middle of, you know, me, of course, I helped out with the WNBA stuff, the basketball stuff, you know, the Shoreline, the Champaign, the community stuff. But he would have these projects where he's always helping somebody in the basketball space. And at that point, I was kind of checked out, you know, on the agent stuff. I was like really front office driven. Like that's where I wanted to take it. And man, I was, you know, in my apartment in Harlem, I got a call, and he just got Jaylen Brown, you know, on three-way. But this is Jaylen, you know, fresh off of his freshman year at Cal Berkeley, right?
Yeah, not who he is, not obviously.
Yeah, but yes, right? Because first thing, the thing that you got to know about Jaylen, he chose Cal Berkeley on his own out of nowhere. He called coach. They weren't even recruiting him because they didn't even think they had a chance. Like, yo, I'm coming. And he went because of the education level that he was going to be able to operate at. And then, you know, he also thought he was better than anybody that he played against. So whether I go to Cal, Berkeley, or Kentucky, I'm going to be able to go to the NBA. And so, you know, he was exploring going into the draft. You know, he was interviewing agents, and Isiah, you know, was guiding him through that pro bono. Like he wasn't looking to get anything from him. Like Jaylen reached out to him and his team about, you know, Zeke assisting them in that process. And so, you know, it was myself. It was Hashim, who was over the African American Studies program at Cal Berkeley. Ansar Alamin, he was his trainer. And, man, me and Zeke, we were handling the basketball process and just making sure that, you know, he was, you know, anything that he needed or anything that, you know, could interfere with, you know, him having a clear-cut process that, you know, could compromise his integrity. We kept him free of that. You know, we tied him up with the Players Association early in the process, which was something that Isiah hangs his hat on as a young NBA player. You know, he got engaged early with the Players Association, understanding how the CBA works, you know, all of these different things. And so Jaylen was interviewing agents, and nobody really spoke his language. And so Isiah gave him the idea, like, look, you're going to be, you know, a first-round pick. Your salary's already going to be slotted, right? Like, we're going to work out for these teams. We're going to get through this process. You can pick an agent later on. And so, you know, that's where I was initially exposed. Like, I got a chance to go through a first-round red carpet draft experience, you know, with Jaylen through Zeke. And I was just like, I was inspired. And it wasn't about the on-court stuff, but the things that we were building off the court. Like, Jaylen was a technology guy, education guy, just a super unique dude. And that process just it opened my eyes. I got a chance to see through Isiah, you know, one of the greatest players that have ever maximized his IP on the court and created off the court. And then Jaylen was doing it in the front of his career. So, like, it was just a process that I was super, super excited about. And so it's like, man, I want to take a stab at being an agent. Not Jaylen's agent, but an agent, because, you know, Jaylen was on the process of, I'm not gonna have an agent. So while I was working with Isiah, I started studying for. At this point in time, they had a test for the NBPA agency exam, and so I took the test. I got licensed, and Isiah sat me down. It's like, man, this business is dirty, man. So just think about it, but I'm gonna help you out as much as I can. And so, I got licensed, and then it was pretty much off to the races at that point.
Wow, that's crazy. And I've heard that Jaylen Brown's like super smart, like rocket scientist smart, like
usually the smartest person in the room, and I don't care who's in the room.
Yeah,
he's a brilliant dude. Like all of the stuff that he's doing right now, that now that he's talking about Black Wall Street and Boston.
Right.
He sat in front of Harvard Business School and, did a keynote and just had everybody blown away. He has been that since he was 18, 19 years old. Yeah. So the kid is like Mozart.
Which is interesting when you talk about building Black Wall Street in Boston.
Right.
Because I've been to Boston several times.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you have as well.
It ain't nothing Black Wall Street.
Yo, I remember my first time I went to Boston for work. Right. And it was like it's like I could feel the racism when I got off the plane.
Nah, the air is thick, bro.
Oh yeah, it's like it's palpable out there, bro. Like and I mean, you thought it was like you hear about it, yeah, but not until you actually go. And I didn't have any like bogus encounters or anything like that. But it's like you can feel it. It's evident there. Absolutely. And the in terms of like the sports and how they treat it, even when it goes back to like Bill Russell and all that, like all that, their history in terms of how they treated their own black athletes that played for their sports teams is well documented.
Trust, I know, man.
Yeah, so it's interesting, and I'm definitely excited to see what he builds, and what he does with that, and it's good to see somebody that is as brilliant and as physically gifted. Nah. It's like some people just win a genetic lottery, man. It's just like, how the fuck you that gifted athletically and that smart? You know
like they talking about his left hand. Let me tell you something. I believe in the sliding scale. You're not going to get everything. Right. You ain't going to be that brilliant, that good with your right hand, all of this stuff, and have a left hand. Like, God ain't giving it up like that.
Right, yeah, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? You got to have a flaw. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like even Achilles had to heal. You know what I'm saying?
Bro.
Like, yeah, bro.
Man.
Like,
Come on, man.
You can't have it all.
No doubt, yeah.
So your first official client was a guy by the name of Milton Doyle, correct?
Milton Doyle, yep. Still my client to this day. Milton, West Side legend, man.
Yeah, he went to Marshall, right?
Killer.
Out west is what we say in Chicago.
He from K-Town. Let's be specific.
Oh, okay. From the K-Town. Okay.
Yeah. But, man, Milt was just – I remember watching him in high school. I got a chance to watch him play against Whitney Young, and I wasn't an agent then. I was just home, watching high school basketball. I'm like, man, I don't know who dude is, but he is nice. Like, he just had this – this delusional confidence. He kind of reminded me of Jamal Crawford a little bit. Just he was one of those guys that just came out of nowhere his senior year, and Kansas was recruiting him, all of these different schools, and Isiah was the head coach at Florida International at the time.
I forgot. I forgot about that. He had that stint there.
So Zeke pulled up like, look, he already had a relationship with the family, man. With Isiah in the picture, then. It's even. I don't care if it's Duke or anybody else. Right. Isiah, wherever, for somebody from the West Side, they rolling with Zeke. And so, he unfortunately, Isiah, never got a chance to coach Milt a day at FIU. And then, when all that stuff started falling apart, Milt transferred to Kansas. He had a hell of a summer, but Chicago stuff, man. They said he wouldn't leave his room, stuff like that, just like just a culture shock.
Yeah.
And, just
going from Chicago to Kansas.
And
West Side, I
want to get up out of here, and he ended up transferring to Loyola, right?
Okay.
That's more of his. It was enough culture, academic, and it's home. You know what I mean? And so he had a really good career at Loyola, and just looking at it, he looked like a long shot NBA guy. But Isiah was like, do we want to work with Milton? And he didn't give me a chance to say no. He said, we're working with Milton, and you're gonna be his agent. And so, that was the first guy that I had a chance to officially represent. His first team that he played for was the Brooklyn Nets.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was that situation like? What was that experience like for him to be in like your first official? Were there growing pains with that? I mean, I know obviously you had Zeke helping you along the way, but I'm sure there may have been some instances where like, things may not have worked out the way you thought they would, or some things you may have learned, like.
Absolutely. I mean, and the thing, Zeke, and I'm going to be clear about this, he never got caught up in agent stuff. He going to make the connection and the relationship. He going to be an advisor, but he not about to go talking to teams and doing stuff like that. Like, he okay, I connected y'all, now y'all figure it out. And
right.
so, you know, Milt worked out for like 9 teams. It was a little slow in the beginning, but he ended up getting workouts on the back end of the process. And when a young player is going through that draft process and their entire lives they've been, you know, top dog, numero uno, and they're going through a process where they're at the bottom of the barrel, and you got to be patient and wait. You know, as the agent, you got to you have to absorb that with them. And you know, it was tough for him. It was tough for him, which in turn made it tough for me, because then the pressure is on me at that point to go out there and, man, your job is to get me a job. And
right,
so the workouts started picking up, the Kings, the Lakers, all of these different teams. And, you know, I had a really good relationship with the Brooklyn Nets. Matt Riccardi, he's, you know, in the front office with the Dallas Mavericks now, but he liked Milt a lot. He's like, we're not going to draft him, but, you know, if he's available after the draft, you know, we'll bring him on as just a summer league guy. You know, he'll get a chance to come to our summer league team and fight for an opportunity. And he took off at Vegas Summer League, man. So.
Yeah, a lot of people get on during the summer league.
Yeah, man.
And end up having decent careers, end up making it, you know, and building. So, but he's so where's Milt now?
Man, Milt is in Australia now, man. He's in Tasmania, man. He's on a 2-way contract with the Brooklyn Nets, which is pretty much you're on the G League team and the parent club. You know, he had a chance to, you know, really, really build up confidence through the organization that first year. And so going into the summer of that next year, he was expected to be one of those guys. Like, we expect for you to come a summer league and clicking. And the guy, and man, he had a slow start to summer league, and it's a bunch of new blood there. And so the team, man, their head is on a swivel, and he ended up losing his contract during summer league. And, you know, we had to make a quick pivot. It's like, look, it's a bunch of really, really good overseas agents here, because how it works is, even if you're, you know, internationally certified through FIBA, you still have to have a partner agent abroad, because they have the relationships with the teams, and those teams feel comfortable dealing with them. And so, you know, I met a guy, man, Marco Rodolfi, man. He's still my European partner to this day, but you know, he was somebody that Milt and I had a conversation with. We trusted him, and you know, Marco got Milt started, and he played his first season over in Italy, man. Had a really, really good year, and the season was too long. He was a little homesick, so, you know, what does the league look like again? And so he came back, and he ended up getting a contract opportunity, a training camp opportunity with the Bulls.
Okay.
Hometown kid, get a chance to put on a Bulls jersey. Like, it don't get any better than that. And, you know, he had an okay training camp, but they ended up waiving him. And then he was like, look, man, I'm ready to just make some money. If their destination is going to be overseas, and it's going to be overseas. And, you know, that's kind of how his process has been going. But multi-year deal over there. His family is over there with him. I mean, he's doing a hell of a job. He could win MVP over in the NBL this year, which is one of the top leagues in the world.
Nice. That's awesome, man. That's good to hear that.
Yeah.
So instead of going through like working for an agency, you decided to start your own.
Yeah.
So Gray Area.
Yep.
Sports Group.
Yeah.
Which is a great name, by the way. Good play on the word. Good play on the name, I should say.
Yeah.
But I found something interesting. I read that you pulled revenue from a trivia card business that you had called Zumble.
Yeah, man.
Where it seems like you basically took like 90s culture.
Yeah.
And so tell me about that, man. How did that get started?
Yeah, man. Give my brother his flowers right here, right now. I'm gonna scream it loud, man. He's brilliant, man. Like he found a keen way to find certain aspects of the '90s, create conversations, and then build product around it. Right? Like he's pretty much packaging up nostalgia, '90s nostalgia, and you know, that was our first like entry point into entrepreneurship. And I was more so the support arm, business ops for what we were doing, but just the creativity behind it. Like, yeah, I got some 90s creativity, but that's what he does, man. And he was putting, you know, Martin quotes, him and a good friend of ours, Robert Greer, Rob, he went to DuSable as well, but putting Martin quotes on the front of T-shirts. And, you know, this is where we found out the power of social media, right? Like, you know, we had the natural hair influencer community, and they just liked the shirts. And man, one of the really, really popular influencers just started wearing it and posting it on her social media. And then next thing you know, we got 30,000 followers on Instagram, right? And so parlayed that from the shirts to doing trivia games to doing events and just all of this different dope stuff, man. And so, you know, like, my experience is what created the relationships and the opportunities, but the ability to dive out there and be an agent, you got to be able to fund that process. It's a very expensive business. And so, we pull money out of the trivia card business to fund that first draft process. Like you got to have money to go through the process. And, that was a spark to get everything going. Like that started it.
Yeah. So y'all still, I see the site's still up. Y'all still selling cars?
Man, business is booming, man. He's doing, he's creating content, on TikTok now.
Okay.
Like, reviewing like 90s albums and creating this space where, man, he can be the thought leader in that space, man. And I'm just looking back as much of a fan as I am a partner of what he's doing and the way he's building it as I'm doing my thing, on the sports side. But now we're yin and yang. We work together, we build, but we brothers first, but we also business partners.
That's beautiful, man. That's
Jason Gray, by the way.
Jason Gray. Shout out to Jason Gray, man. That's awesome, man. Yeah. And it is good to be able to do something like that, man, with your brother, somebody like. So, who's the oldest? Are you?
He's the oldest.
Okay.
You know what I mean, but we both were born. We both born in the month of January, a year apart. So
wow.
I mean, we grew up like do they call it Chinese twins?
Well, Irish twins.
Irish twins.
Yeah.
Yeah, but doing business with family, man, it has its highs and lows. I don't even like calling them lows. It's ebbs and flows, right? There are going to be things where you understand enough about the person you're doing business with to know, okay, this is how we're going to overcome these obstacles, and this is where we're going to be able to work through conflict. And that's because we grew up in the same room, in the same house, and we always had a level of respect for each other.
Yeah.
That just transitioned into adulthood, man. So that's how we're able to be effective business partners. But it's not like that all the time. Business make you stop talking to your family and friends if you don't manage it the right way.
I've seen it many a time. Even though it's always weird because I've always been really close with my family, at least my immediate family, immediates, man. I just especially things in life, man, where you learn that nothing is really more important than like love and family and the people that you respect and hold dear, so every night people gonna bump heads, man. That happens, man. But as long as you always come back together, man, because I hate to see people that so I ain't talked to my brother or my sister in years.
That's like
over something like petty. I couldn't even imagine something like that, bro.
Because at the end of the day, it doesn't. When you look back on it, it's gonna be like, what were we mad about again?
Right,
Not
exactly.
Even worth it. So we probably had one fallout where we probably didn't talk for like a month, our entire adulthood. And I'm like, we'll never do that again. So
that's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
So Gray Area Sports Group, that was started back, was like 2017?
Yeah, so that was 2017, and just to paint the picture about structure, right? Like now, Gray Area Sports Group is where I work with my retired players. Like anybody that has, anything going on post plan, that's like my umbrella, for where I manage those athletes.
Okay.
What ended up happening was I took some lumps in this business, right? Like, after Milton, I represented Kendrick Nunn. I represented Malik Beasley.
Okay.
Like, it was a point in time where it looked like I was about to get a couple of like big multi-year deals, where, I could have brought in a couple of $1 million. And, with Malik, I ended up losing him to Clutch. Like, they poached him from me while we were negotiating his contract with Denver. And then Kendrick Nunn, right before we were about to turn the corner and he had the rookie year that he had, he ended up going in another direction. But that's the business, right? They get one career, and I'm an agent that can have an infinite amount of clients, right? So for whatever reason, those relationships didn't work out business-wise, but putting myself in their shoes, I'm not going to say they made a mistake, but I also understand a little bit why, it was a little bit pressing for them. Like, they needed to know. It wasn't about trust the process. It was about, man, I need this to work for my family. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so if they had another level of comfort where somebody made them feel sure that it can happen then, that's what they did. But what that made me want to do was I needed to align myself with, a little bit more muscle in this business because, you as an agent, you can do the best job in the world, but at the end of the day, if the shot's not falling or the team wants to do, it's a part of the business type of stuff, then you can lose clients. And so, Tracy McGrady, let me back up. Okay. The first time I aligned with a former player on the agency side was Mike Miller, right? Lift Sports Management. I was the first agent on the ground over there with Mike. We had R.J. Hampton, who was a first-round pick that year. I was his agent that year. But then in that offseason, man, Tracy McGrady and Jermaine O'Neal announced that they were getting ready to go into the agency business. Like, it was a big article in the New York Times.
Okay.
And someone from ESPN that I used to book some talent from some of my retired guys. Kendrick Perkins, like I would work through this person to get him on air all the time. And she reached out to me and was like, yo, I want to connect you to Tracy McGrady's business manager because they're looking for an agent to come be a part of what they're doing. And I think you'll be a good fit. And so I was on the phone with T-Mac and Jermaine like the next, 10 minutes, right? And this is where Isiah drafted Tracy and he paid Jermaine his first $100 million contract, right?
That was in Indiana.
Yeah, he pulled him out of Portland, traded him to Indiana and changed everything. He drafted Tracy McGrady and made the personnel move that put Tracy into the starting lineup. So everyone assumed that it was a Zeke thing, but it wasn't, right? Like they had nothing to do with each other, but we had a really, really good conversation, and both Jermaine and Tracy, they were on board with bringing me on as a guy to lead that basketball division. And so anything front end agency business has been with 7-1 Sports and Entertainment, man. And, just watching these guys kind of go through their process of learning and seeing what this business is in a way that they probably never would have imagined, it's been a treat because we're growing and we're taking some strides where they can end up being, some former players that can lead this business. And so being a part of that is super, super important to me because, again, it's another look at Isiah, as a businessman, philanthropist, and all of this stuff. They didn't feel that he would be able to do these things, but he did it. And going into a business where former players are being told that they're not capable of being a part of this business, it was like, I want to be a part of that purpose. So that whole purpose-driven process, former black players that have poured into this business and helped grow this league to what it is, if I got an opportunity to be a part of them being successful, then that was something that I wanted to do, and that was behind my decision to, go over there with those guys.
And I feel like in the NBA specifically now, with a lot of the older black players, there's a lot more empowerment. Absolutely. They're definitely like being more involved in things outside of basketball, being more involved like with players in the league on the mentoring aspect. And then with media being what it is, we talked about KG earlier. He's flourishing in media. You got Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. One of my favorite podcasts is All Smoke. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And then see, they kind of him and that thing where I don't know if you saw with KG and Paul Pierce. I forgot where Paul Pierce didn't realize
the live stream.
Yeah, and he didn't realize he was on.
Yeah, I know. I was there.
You was there?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm Kevin Garnett's business manager, and so all of the stuff that he does in the media space, from KG certified to all of that stuff. Like I'm a part of that process, man. From booking the talent to finding the deals to support the show, to build out what the future of that is going to be. I mean, the story is so long-winded. That's why when you told me we was going to be in here for an hour, I'm like, how can I tell this story in the most succinct way possible? But
no, well, we can go a little bit over. It's not, please tell the story. Breathe.
How it started off was, I was at the Hall of Fame with Zeke. His champagne was one of the sponsors at the Hall of Fame when Teresa Weatherspoon was getting inducted. And, I got KG, he operates on an app. He'll call you on the app. He ain't gonna call you on the phone. Like, it's just to protect his stuff. So
I understand.
I get a call like, "What up, Lord? What your dirty ass doing?" Just, I'm like, "Man, what's good, big fella?" He was like, "Man, I want you to help my bro out. He trying to get back in the league. He want to go out the right way, man. I think y'all be good for each other." I'm like, "Just whatever. Let me know." And it turned out to be Kendrick Perkins. He referred Perk to me, and me and Perk started this process of. It wasn't to play in the NBA, but it was to make sure you had a proper farewell. When you're a champion and you are an ingredient for all of these organizations, they don't even let these dudes go out with any dignity anymore. They just get cut from a team and then disappear, right? And so, I was all of the teams that he played for, the Celtics, OKC, all of these teams, like, he just want to sign a contract, come in, do his curtain call, and everybody said no. Every team said no. And, through that time of us just having conversations, it may have been like a 2-month process. We would just get on the phone and just talk basketball, right? And I was like, man, he got a unique way of talking sports, man. Like, it's like barbershop talk meets country boy meets expertise. Like, it was all three of those things in his own way. I was like, man, you should think about doing media. He like, man, Richie Rich, ain't nobody want to hear no country boy from Beaumont talk basketball.
Oh, boy, was he wrong.
boy, was he wrong. But what he said was he would try it to maybe get his name out there to get consideration for coaching jobs. He wanted to be the first big man head coach to be successful in the NBA because, he's a cerebral dude when it comes to basketball, all BS aside. And he went from auditioning for coaching jobs on air to, networks calling back, like, can we get him back? Can we get him back? And then next thing you know, he's the hottest up-and-coming talent, in sports TV, you know what I mean? So he was doing Fox Sports and ESPN in the same day. It was a bidding war between, these two companies trying to get him to come on board to be full-time permanent talent. And so, it was like one of those light bulb moments, like, you know what? This is why I can start building out this space for retired players, right? Like Zeke was one thing. He's Zeke. He's elite. That's going to happen. But I feel like every retired player that played at the highest level has something out there for them that they can get into. And the reason why they have it is because all of them have an ecosystem that they can tap into to get support for whatever it is that they're building. If they want to be a chef, a journalist, a gardener, whatever it is that they want to do, if you're, somebody that made it to the NBA, let's use Milton Doyle, for example. If he wanted to start a career in tech, Loyola would support him. He would have a community in Brooklyn that would be supportive of him because he was a part of that team. He's building internationally with what he's doing right now, where they are rallying behind him as one of their local heroes. International business is a real thing. If he structured it in a certain way, he can get enough support to at least start it. But it's about them deciding what it is that they want to do. Is it a passion? And can we make it something that they really, really want to get up and do every single day? And so Perk was the light bulb. And throughout that success, Kev was watching, like he was dealing with the bigger agencies. And it's just, man, it's a way that he likes to go about his process for different opportunities. And it's a more patient, probing process. Yeah. And they're not doing that. If you're a big agency, it's like, okay, if it's not $500,000 to $1 million deal, we're not even gonna have a conversation. So he, he would miss out on so many different opportunities to build and be creative because of that. And so he called me out of the blue, like, man, I'm restructuring some stuff, man. I want you to, if you be open to it, come on board and help me with what I got going on. I'm like, done. Like, let's do it.
Would you be open to it?
Would you be open to it? And so, I've been, I was going on 2 years now building with Kev, man. But, it's production company, man, Content Cartel, man. We had 2 films in Tribeca over the past 2 years, man. They're the premium content on Tubi. I know Tubi is like a joke on social media, but be careful with what's going on because what they're doing is they're taking that viewership that they have, all of those subscribers, and they're trying to sprinkle, premium content in there, and they're gonna eventually shift from the, low budgeted, bad edited projects, and you're gonna look up and they're gonna mirror a Netflix. And so he, he's in the conversations of potentially taking a board seat and building out their black noir. Like he's trying to take what blaxploitation was and make sure that it's positive and premium and not looked at as like a joke, even though blaxploitation was a big thing at that time. For absolutely. Our people, it was our only opportunity, but he's leading that. Conversations with all of these different distribution platforms about building out KG Certified, man. He's building, doing some really dope stuff, and just being one of the people that's at the center of that process, man. You can't beat it.
Oh man, that's amazing, and it's really good to see and to hear. Because for so many years, the story of the discarded athlete, somebody that was in the NBA made millions, and then a few years later they were broke with nothing to do, no connections, no network, no nothing. So to see more of that happening, where they're having these like careers after the fact and still being involved in some way with basketball and not just being discarded after like organizations have made all this money off of them. And really like more so. And I feel like, the NFL is still way behind in terms of that. And I'm not sure, you talk about the Good Old Boys Network, I'm not sure if the NFL may ever catch up. But the players are so empowered in the NBA, absolutely, in terms of what they can do and the power that they hold and that they yield it constantly, and to see that transition into the older players as well. Even though I know that sometimes there's a lot of debates on like the older style of players versus the new style, and the old athletes versus the new athletes, which is generational things like that happen across Across everything. It's not just, you know what I'm saying, in sports.
Absolutely.
But I just love to see so many older players now having a space in media and being able to talk basketball, you know, and do the things that they love and still be able to make a living and make a damn good living at that.
A phenomenal living, man. And I feel like that industry is where the opportunity is, right? Like, you know, when people reach out to me and ask, you know, like, what's a great way to break in? Man, go to the area where there's an opportunity, where if you got these skills or these things that you feel like you'll be good at, give yourself an opportunity to do it. You know, like it's only 450 NBA roster spots, and you add the few 2-ways, you know, that'll add 90 more spots. But at the end of the day, you know, those opportunities are going to be, you know, far and few in between, and they're going to be harder to come by. So I'm not saying don't aspire to be an agent, you know, front end, but man, these retired guys and the opportunities that are out there, they just need people to help lead them through that process and people that they trust, you know what I mean? And so being able to, I don't look at it as a coincidence that I've been able to, you know, connect with several elite Hall of Famers across, you know, the NBA and the WNBA and become someone that they trust to be able to help guide, you know, their post-playing careers, right? Like that's not by coincidence, because it's your intent and your purpose has to be to serve and support those, you know, those players and their families, man. And I feel like that's what I'm doing. I'm building that out. Like I want to be the leader in making. I want the front end of your career to look like the back end of your career. I don't want retirement to be showing up to All-Star Weekend with big suits doing curtain calls. Like, nah, like you can still be fly, man. You can still be a part of NBA Tech Summits. You can be a part of the, you know, the future and the progress of the league, because people trust you and they want to be around you. And it's what you do with the time when you're in those spaces. Don't go to the league and let them use your IP during All-Star Weekend to make events more attractive. Go to that Tech Summit. Go see what they're talking about every single year. If you go to the NBA Tech Summit at All-Star Weekend, it's a reason why they have it at 8 o'clock in the morning on Friday, right? It's not that they don't want us there, but they want that room to be limited. So the 5 topics that they're going to be talking about, from broadcast and the technology to all of these different AI, all of this stuff, that's where the world is getting ready to go. So if you're an elite player or a player that can get access to that, go find 5 people in all of those different silos, establish a relationship with you and your business partner, and build it out. It's a cheat code. Whatever it is that you are into or could potentially be into is right there. And that industry could be amazing.
So before we wrap up, man, just want to know, like, so what does the future look like for you outside of all of that stuff that you just mentioned? Let's just say, like, so like the current roadmap, where do you see all of this stuff with you going?
Yeah, so man, I'm excited about building out the integrated athlete, man. The integrated athlete is a platform that's going to showcase and highlight and create new opportunities for, you know, guys at the end of their career and post-playing career, where they can tell their stories, but then also get the opportunity to be exposed to things that's going to allow them to take advantage of their ecosystem. You know, somebody like, so Andre Iguodala, he retired, right? He's 40 years old. He's played basketball since 2002, right? And, you know, at the highest level, if you consider Arizona and then going to the NBA, he took care of his money. He's going to be able to invest and do some really, really good things, but he's going to be rare. A lot of the cases, the guys got some of their money. They may have a few different ideas, but it's not structured and it's not buttoned up. And so I want to build that out to help tell that story and build out an industry. I'm not trying to build a company just for me where I make all the money. I want to build out an industry so former NFL players, NBA players, and other sports alike are able to come in and maximize something that they invested their whole lives in.
And it seems like, especially when it comes to things like this, I mean, there's so many more avenues for content now.
Absolutely.
Right. You know, and it's like, it seems like so many current players. You mentioned Pat Beverly. Pat Bev has a podcast, right?
Absolutely.
There's somebody like Michael Parsons that plays for the Cowboys. He has a podcast. Travis Kelce, who is now more famous than ever because of fucking Taylor Swift. Even though people try to act like they didn't know who Travis Kelce was. Travis Kelce had commercials. I mean, he's one of the faces of the NFL.
He's been popping.
Obviously not as famous as fucking Taylor Swift. But still famous in his own right. But there's so many opportunities. There are a lot of former athletes like Jake Long.
Jake Long.
Him and Kyle, their brother, they have their own, you know, so it's a lot of former players, and they can tell these stories, and they have these relationships.
Yeah.
And so they can tell it from the guys like, there are things about people that were journalists and covered, but they're not on the field. Yeah. They're not on the court. Yeah. They're not in the locker room all the time. They're not hearing everything, and they're not experiencing this stuff firsthand. Yeah. So for them to be able to tell it, it's so much more interesting to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Absolutely, and just the whole idea of looking at media, it's how you use it. Like, everybody doesn't want to be the guy that goes on and debates the GOAT and who's the best in the league right now. They want to be able to have a platform to talk about whatever, and they want to take those conversations and then create a pathway to go out and build. Right, like that's where they built the awareness of the things that they're trying to do. Like if you're Allen Iverson and you're Al Harrington and you got Viola, the cannabis company, right? It's dope that y'all have all of this different stuff, popping out and building. But what happens if you guys have a consistent space to talk about that industry in a way that no one has ever talked about it, using the former player's perspective? Like, these dudes, were depressed and stressed out because they didn't have a way to cope, right? And they didn't look at blowing as just like a party thing. They did it as like, man, I got to go out here every night and satisfy 40,000 fans, or they're going to be on my neck. And so that was like their gateway to be able to just lock in and focus. So what happens as you build in Viola, you got your platform to talk about it consistently and all of the different emerging aspects of that industry. Like, use the media to get your voice out there and whatever it is that you're trying to get off, and then amplify, man.
Yeah, I feel like Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson have kind of done that.
No doubt.
A lot in terms of like normalizing, and because even with the way now, like the NBA not even testing for it no more. Nah, absolutely. Because and obviously the NFL is way behind. They probably, you know what I'm saying? They just
got to get off that, man. Like these dudes, man, that's a very, very hard job to do, and a lot of partners that they have to satisfy. From, sponsors to arenas to vendors, like all of that stuff, man. They carrying a lot of water. So
and not just and even to speak about the physical pain that you have to endure. And obviously, basketball is not as hard on your body as football. That's still, you 82 games a year.
Absolutely.
Traveling to different cities all the time. Like, that's obviously not easy and then hard on the body as well. Running up and down that court.
Absolutely.
So and people have used marijuana for pain management.
Absolutely.
It's not just for and that's the thing. People act like people just want to smoke just to get high and be stupid. It was just like, no, like they really do use it to cope with anxiety, to deal with for pain management. And so it's good to see the stigma around that changing, and like just what you spoke about with Allen Iverson and Al Harrington with Viola, like Matt Barnes, they had a lot of people, and I remember Al Harrington being on there and talking about when he first started smoking while he was in the NBA. He said the first time he smoked, the next day he got hit with a random.
Man. So man, you use that to just keep. It's some new news to have a voice around every day in every space. So why not be a thought leader in that space?
Absolutely. And I feel like, this podcasting, obviously it's it's very popular now. Right. But a lot of it, and obviously one of the reasons why I wanted to get into it myself, outside of like just really having like a love for conversation. But also it's just like this is a form of journalism.
No doubt about it.
Now I'm not going to be disrespectful, and cause we talked a little bit beforehand about people like Scoop Jackson. Like, Scoop Jackson is a journalist. You know what I'm saying? Like, through and through. So I won't be disrespectful to people like that and refer to myself as a journalist. But this is a form of journalism. So there is a power and responsibility that comes with this.
Absolutely.
And a lot of what we see is like, caters to a lot of BS, clickbait stuff. People just want to say sensationalized things for clicks and views, without any real integrity or really thought of how this is affecting the ecosystem overall. Absolutely. But when you see people do things and use it responsibly, it can be very powerful for good, and you can do like very, very awesome things with it. So I love to see like the people like Matt and Steve. And doing the things that they're doing, and their platform has grown. They've had some of everybody on there now.
It's tremendous, and they actually work on their craft. Like, I feel like Matt Barnes, he, Kev, is a big fan of just like his improvement over the years. I'll even say the thing for somebody like Jalen Rose. He put the time in. Like, he started off doing BET. You know what I mean? And
Bro,
then evolved to who he is and how we know him today.
I was so sad when I found that they let ESPN let Jalen Rose go.
I wasn't, because this is what's happening. And this is with any industry that includes black men. They want to make it where we have to compete for a limited amount of spots, right? And they want to make it look as if that's the only way to get it done. Like, it's super discouraging if you think about it, right? But somebody like Jalen Rose, man, Jalen has the audience, the expertise, and the credibility to go out there and do it on his own. Like, by the time you get a sponsor and then see how like the back end of that industry works, which I'm getting an opportunity to do with KG. Look, it's not rocket science. Like, you only got to understand it one time, and then you can start running point on your own platform that you're building. It's sponsors, it's sales, it's social media, but then it's also making sure that you're on air consistently and talking about things that people want to hear. So, I wasn't mad. Like, their loss.
Yeah, no, facts. I was just sad because I just love watching them. Yeah, I love seeing them on there. And you talk about somebody improving. Oh yeah, from like where he started, absolutely, to where he ended up with the show, the Jalen and Jacoby. Yeah. And he used to work with, what was the guy that they fired from ESPN a long time ago? Bill Simmons. Bill Simmons. They had that little YouTube series where they used to tell stories. I remember he told that story about when he stole Patrick Ewing's TV. Did you ever see that?
Yeah, no, man, I listened to all of this stuff. But think about how big Bill Simmons is, right, in this space now. Jalen validated him.
He did.
Bill,
he did, absolutely.
He had the book of basketball. Like, that was all good, but he made it okay for him to sit next to NBA players and talk about basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. No, he made Bill Simmons cool. He brought him in, And I feel like they had a bit of a mutually beneficial relationship, because I feel like where he gave Bill Simmons that quality with the what the word I'm looking for, but when he validated Bill Simmons with the players, that in turn kind of validated Jalen in terms of media and being able to talk about sports intelligently, and he definitely improved over time, even with somebody like, I remember when Shannon Sharp first started doing the halftime show with CBS, and it was wild. I'm like, bro, this dude Shannon is like, man, like just big old country boy on there. But you could see the work that he put in over the years to build himself into arguably the biggest media personality that we have there now.
The person sitting across from you every single day when you're doing that, you're going to benefit each other. Like, you're going to be able to build off their strengths. They're going to be able to build off your strengths. But like, I feel like that's the philosophy that I'm talking about when it comes to former athletes entering industries. You leveraging your IP and something that, people are big fans of, and you can go out into this world and align yourself with leaders in other spaces and validate yourself, and then also give them an opportunity to build what they're building. Like, Kendrick Perkins, he wrote a bestseller last year. People would think that Perk had nothing to do with that book. But what happened was, the writer, Seth Rogoff, he reached out to me about wanting to tell a story about civil rights through the lens of Kendrick Perkins' journey from Beaumont, Texas to the Boston Celtics, right? And if you think about Beaumont, Texas to Boston, that thickness of racism in the air that you're talking about, and the path that you have to drive to get there, it was a perfectly put together complementary story that the two of those guys could actually tell together. So they sat on Zoom calls twice a week for 2 hours, recorded to make sure that every word that was written was through the authentic voice of Perk, but touched up and made it more, digestible for readers through the pen of Seth. And that type of collaboration is what I mean when I say athletes can literally go do anything. Like, Kendrick Perkins wrote a book. You never even heard Kendrick talk to the media when he was a player, but he really wrote that book and was a part of it.
That's crazy. And I had no idea that he had a bestseller.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, Perk been out here killing it, man. I can't front on him.
Yeah.
He was and he was one of those. Also, another person when you saw when he first started, it was a little rough. But I can imagine, like, you first getting used to it. You got to read a teleprompter. You got people talking to you in your ear.
You got to learn. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a new thing. I don't take it for people think. Especially like, when you see people talking sports on TV, people think that it's just, you just get on there and give your opinion. Like, nah, bro, this is a skill. you know, to be able to talk and they be able to speak intelligently and actually have like original thought and not just regurgitate other things that people are saying to really give your opinion.
And it has to be entertaining.
Exactly.
TV, right. And some people will never be naturally entertaining. Like Perk is by nature naturally entertaining, but now he's understanding what it means to be an on-air journalist. Right. Like you gotta the preparation process, right? The person talking in your ear, taking your beats. You know, whatever ESPN's process is, you got to abide by that process. Like, it's a lot of work and preparation that goes into that. You're not going to last if you don't buy into a process and putting the time in.
Yeah, man. But this has been an awesome interview, bro. Yeah, man. You dropped a lot of jewels on this.
Appreciate you having me on.
A lot of awesome stories, man. Told me a lot of stuff that I had no idea about. Like, shit, fucking Big Perk had a bestseller. I'm sure a lot of other people knew, obviously, because he got a fucking bestseller. But it was news to me.
He did his thing, man.
Yeah, and especially we talk about, like, with Zeke. Give Zeke his flowers, man, please.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? The Bad Boys was a long time ago. We can let that shit go now.
Absolutely. And the last piece I want to give, but before we roll, the Chicago Sky piece, right? Like that, my first opportunity in sports where it was like the intersection between the Chicago Sky and being an agent, you know, being able to represent, I feel like probably their most decorated coach in league history, the opportunity to call the owner of the Sky directly, because I used to take care of his family on game nights as an intern and say, hey, have y'all talked to Teresa Weatherspoon? And we didn't even know she was available. Who's her agent? I'm her agent. Would she talk to us? Let's have a conversation. And then 3 months later, she's hired in her press conference to become the new head coach of the Chicago Skies tomorrow. So that's like a super full circle moment, man. And it's just important that.
So have you taken the time to kind of soak that in? Because that's really kind of like, so where you kind of started at to now you are negotiating the contract of their next head coach, who just happened to be a fucking WNBA legend.
NBA basketball hall of
Fame. And not even fuck WNBA, a basketball legend. You know what I'm saying? Like for Teresa Weatherspoon. Yeah. Like, so have you soaked that in yet, man?
I mean, it's one of those surreal things. Like we talk 5 times a day. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know, we went through a tough process together last year when she was, you know, in my opinion, unfairly let go. Well, this summer, unfairly let go by the New Orleans Pelicans after turning down an opportunity to be head coach for the Phoenix Mercury, who just hired the highest paid coach in league history, who happens to be not a woman and not African American, right? And she had that opportunity, and the Pelicans told her, "Look, you here for the long haul. We feel like you can lead this organization someday," and so that's what sold her on coming back. And they let her go at the end of the season, and so it's like, man,
dirty motherfuckers.
It's the game, man. The game ain't the game will always be the game. But man, she figured it out, man. Went through a really, really challenging interviewing process with the Sky, but man, we are in a position where she's about to come to Chicago and bring some really, really, you know, dope stuff here. But, you know, the trust comes through the trust of others. Like, she was one of the player development coaches for the New York Liberty when I was there. You know, I sat outside of Isiah Thomas's office for 4 years. Zeke was, you know, there,
right?
But sometimes not. But when they needed to vent, Rich was the one that they was piling all the vent on, and then that's where the trust was established, and the phone calls would come to help out people from the organization, man. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah. So one last thing, and just reading through your history, one thing that seemed constant was the building and keeping of relationships.
Absolutely.
And you know, with the way things are now, and so many people want like the quick road to success. Yep. They want to get, you know, check a bag real quick. Yeah. And don't necessarily even always care about what they do or who they do it to, on their way to it. You know, it's kind of like a me, myself, and I mentality. Much more than at least that's what I see. I feel like I see nowadays. So just if you can speak to like how moving with integrity and building and maintaining relationships has helped you and kept you all these years, man, and like to somebody that may be looking to embark down a similar road that you've gone down. Like, just can you speak to that?
Yep. Hank Thomas said it, man. Purpose driven, man. Like, that's what it's about. Like, the purpose should be, you know, to meet people and serve them in a meaningful way, right? Like, it's not about how do I get a new client that's gonna get to the next paycheck, that's gonna, you know, help put me and my family in position financially, right? Is when they come to you, it's something that they see in you that makes them trust you to be one of the ones that help guide them in their purpose. And so you got to always constantly center yourself and take yourself back to, okay, what's the purpose behind this, and how do I move with integrity? Like, that's like the philosophy, of my career. And I feel like I'm just getting started. So any, whatever path that any, young man or young woman, that are, looking to take is, get that purpose together first. Like, that's the first thing. And then when it comes to these relationships, man, establish the relationships with the intentions of keeping the relationships and pouring into the relationships and reciprocating the energy, not always what can I get out of it? Like, what do you bring into the relationship, man? And that's something that I stand on 10 toes. Absolutely.
Keys to life.
Yes, sir.
Hey, man, well, I appreciate you for coming on, bro. Given this is definitely been one of the best interviews I've done on here, man. You gave us a lot of knowledge.
Appreciate you.
A lot of good stories, man.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, so this has been beautiful. So once again, man, to my guest of honor, Rich Gray, basketball agent, business manager extraordinaire. Fucking Chicago legend in your own right now, man. You got
taking it, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, definitely, bro. You out here doing big things, man.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
And as to all my listeners, like I like to say every week, or every 2 weeks, I should say, you could be looking at a lot of different things, man. There's so much content out here. Yep. There's so many things that you could be looking at. So any time that you would take a chance to view mine and to listen to what I have to say, I always want to express my utmost gratitude and just say thank you. You could be anywhere else in the world, so I appreciate you being here with me.
No doubt.
And until the next time, peace.